Hi there, happy Monday. It is another toaster of a Monday out there here in Texas, but somehow we manage. We've lived here long enough. You'd think we'd quit complaining. Anyways, so this is second to last of this series that I'm going to be doing on here. So 30 days where I have been sharing different obstacles to my transformation with you and ways that I addressed those obstacles and overcame them. So today's is a big one. I constantly comparing myself to others. So this is very much related to that idea of not being connected to myself, having a low self-esteem. So I was constantly looking outside myself for answers. And so the way that this showed up specifically in today's example is that I would constantly compare myself to the people around me. Now this, keep in mind, this was not a comparison for the sake of competition. It was completely for the sake of imitation, the highest form of compliment, right? So what that would look like is I would see somebody that I thought was attractive, and I would immediately begin this internal story or this internal assessment of how do I stack up next to them? Do I look similar to them? Do I carry myself in that way? It wasn't a fun experience because it constantly presented a moving target to me. So if you imagine you've got a goal, but that goal constantly changes, then it's this sort of constant unattainable thing. And so especially when you're talking about comparing your physical body to somebody else's physical body, one day I might see like a 6-foot blonde supermodel on TV and think, oh, I want to look like that. Do I look like that? Well, guess what? I'm not 6 feet and I'm not blonde. There's no way that I can become 6 feet. So that automatically kind of leaves me a little bit stranded on that one. I could be blonde, but I don't know that I would look that good blonde. I know blondes look good, but I don't know that I would look that good that blonde. So yeah, it just sort of presented this conundrum, this constant feeling of inadequacy. And then that inadequacy would extend to other areas of my life. So I would physically compare myself to other people, but then that would also affect eating in front of other people. Like I would compare what I ate to what other people ate and how I ate. So if I went to a restaurant, for example, there are so many times where I just struggled I didn't know what I wanted to eat. And I would, inevitably there would be people at the table that I was wishing that I looked more like. And so I would just kind of creep on like, what are they eating down there? I should get that too. Or I would just ask them like, oh, what are you going to order? And I would a lot of times not order because it was something that I like deeply wanted, but I just didn't know what to order. So I'd order what they ordered. And then I would compare how I was eating. Did I eat too fast? Did I eat too slow? It made socializing an internal nightmare. I know that I'm an introvert, and it's funny now that I'm talking about this. I don't know if it's chicken or the egg question. I don't know if I became an introvert as a result of having these kind of like sort of neurotic struggles, or I was an introvert and so I was prone to those struggles. I don't know which one came first, and honestly, it doesn't matter. I just know that is something that I experienced. And so over and over again, my internal mantra was really, you're not enough. You need to find something outside of you to complete you, to make you enough. And I just want to attach onto this idea, just kind of bring your attention back to, we had a conversation, one of the videos about stress and what stress is, and how stress is essentially losing control of your attention. It's when your attention is everywhere but where you want it to be. this presented a very special form of stress for me. Because if you imagine, anytime you go out, somebody could walk by you and just you're triggered like, how do I compare to them? Oh my gosh. And then that just needles in your brain for however long it's going to needle. And you're stressed. And so it was a massive obstacle for me. What I discovered during my transformation, as I began to transform, I discovered that the transformation itself required me to be able to bring my attention off of everyone else around me and turn it back on me. It required that. Because if you can imagine, let's say that I decide my system is going to be, I'm going to lose weight by becoming a vegetarian. I did not do that, but let's just say that's what I was doing. And I go to eat with my friend that I think is just crazy attractive and I want to look like her, and she's eating keto. It is not going to serve me if during that meal I suddenly abandon my vegetarian program and do a sort of quasi keto meal, just one meal, and then it just becomes too sporadic and random. And so by turning my attention back on me, I had to fully commit to myself and whatever program I was going to do. And thankfully I did that. And what I found was that when I met myself where I was, so I say that a lot, we hear that a lot in a yoga class. You know, we welcome our practice to meet us where we are. When I met myself where I was, so what that means is I did not meet myself as a 6-foot blonde supermodel, because that's not what I am. I met myself where I was. And at the point in my transformation where I was, and I ran the system that I had agreed to run, that's where magic began to happen. I discovered the joy of carving out my own body and finding out what my body had to offer. So, for example, for a long time I would joke about like, oh, I've got really strong shoulders and arms. You just can't see them, right? Because they're kind of hidden under some layers. And you might have heard that phrase, I've got that workout made me feel muscles I didn't know I had. That's an internal feeling, right? You get sore in places you didn't know you had. But when I started to run my system and fully commit to myself, and I put blinders on to everybody else, I didn't worry about what other people were doing. I was just worried about what I was doing. I ran my program. That's when I walked by a mirror and it's like, whoa, that's what my triceps look like. That's amazing. That's awesome. And it became exciting. I kind of, the metaphor, the mental model I use in my mind is, if you're familiar at all with the sculptor Michelangelo, he did the David, but he also did these 4 sculptures. They consider them to be unfinished. They're called the prisoners or the slaves, and they're partially finished. And what they represent, when you look at them, it looks like there are these people coming out of this raw marble. So you see some of them, but then there's this marble all around them. And apparently Michelangelo, his process for sculpting is that he would start with this slab of unfinished marble, and he would just start chipping away and discovering the beauty beneath it. So the way I see this is past Sarah was envisioning this process as sitting down with her clump of marble body, and then someone sits like the David in front of her and says, all right, make that. And then, I'm sitting there trying to carve it out. And honestly, if someone were to do that, I'd probably end up carving like Mr. Potato Head or something, because I have no training in sculpting. And anyways, that's neither here nor there. But as I started to run my system, what I discovered was that I was carving out my body the way Michelangelo carved out his sculptures. And what that means is that underneath the layers that I was working with to take away, I discovered that my body was a gift, and that I was surprised by what my muscles looked like, to be honest. Not that I had muscles, I knew I had them, but until you see your own muscles, it's like, I don't know, I could go on. And I know at this point it might be sounding like, wow, you're really full of yourself, Sarah. That's not it at all. But it's just discovering that our body, you know, I say it in my yoga class all the time, but until you are able to put your attention and your awareness back on you and give yourself the gift of consistency and a program that works, you know, you won't be able to see the amazing muscles that you have all up and down your body. And I promise you they're there, whether you feel like they're not or they are or not, they're there. And so like I said, in all of this, I started to discover these things, and I got my attention back, and it helped de-stress me in the process, which is a bonus. So, but for this to be able to happen, what I needed most to be able to get to this point where I could turn my attention back on me, I needed one main thing. I needed certainty. And although I know I harp and say a lot about how, we absolutely have to have an internal shift before we have our external shift, and that is true. That said, I want to present to you the idea of external support. So there is great power in having external support. A metaphor for this, well, forget that metaphor. I could go on for days and days about metaphors. My certainty for me came in the form of my coach. So I got a coach, and I will completely confess, when I started the program that I run now, that I'm on, that I will be on forever, I confess I didn't have that much certainty. But what my coach provided for me was that scaffolding, that support, that helpful hand that he had out to say, like, hey, when you need certainty, lean on me and I'll give it to you. And so what that allowed me to do is, when I would go out to eat with friends, and this is true now, I've got my system that I'm running that's personalized to me. So not only does that give me certainty, but it also kind of makes me feel like a sports figure from one of those 80s sports movies where, you know, the training montage. If you have your own personal coach telling you, no, this is for you, do this, just do this, that gives you the certainty you need to be able to go out, and when everybody's doing their own thing, you've got your thing. You're just running your system. And so, so I share that with you today because I want to invite you to consider that perhaps, just perhaps, you could use some external, some certainty to help you until you were able to bring that certainty from within you. And if that's the case, I invite you to find some form of external accountability that you can lean on. Or if you just need a pep talk for yourself, if you're like, wait, I've got certainty, I just need to do it, then do it by all means. But yeah, definitely having a coach, having someone there in my corner, to support me when I couldn't do that on my own made all the difference. So thank you for sharing your attention with me. If any of this resonates, I would absolutely love to hear your story. Please share it. And I will see you either at the gym tonight, or I will see you on here tomorrow. Have a great Monday, and I will see you back for my last Facebook Live in this series. Talk soon.